Debating is a formal process in which the speakers make a particular point or argument and then defend that point or argument with supporting points. Debating is a great activity to do with our students, particularly our higher level students, because debating allows students to practice a lot of key communication skills. So skills that debating allows students to practice include offering an opinion, agreeing, and disagreeing. And these are really important skills, particularly when communicating in an English-speaking culture. In this session, we take a look at debating and what we can do with our students in our speaking classes to help them develop their debating skills. We'll start the session by taking a look at what debating is. We'll discuss the role that debating can have in the language classroom. We'll go over the logistics of debating and the structure of a formal debate. And we'll review some of the key language, the key phrases that students need in order to debate successfully. And we'll wrap up with a look at some debating activities to use in your speaking lessons. In order to understand what a debate really is, we need to compare and contrast three concepts. The first is an argument. An argument is an informal, unplanned, and usually highly emotional disagreement between two or more people. Argument has a second meaning which we also need to be aware of. An argument can also be a position or an opinion that someone's going to defend when discussing an issue with someone. The final of the three concepts is a debate. A debate is a formal, structured disagreement by two or more parties that follows a very clear process. And in this debate, there's usually someone who takes the affirmative, so they agree with a position, and someone who takes the negative, so they disagree with a position. A debate follows a very clear structure, as I mentioned. So there are opening arguments or opening introductions, there are further arguments and key points or key supporting details, there are rebuttals, and then there are closing arguments. Speakers take turns speaking, and they're usually strictly timed, so speakers cannot exceed the time that they've been given. A final point to emphasize with a debate is that it is planned, so everyone knows ahead of time what the topic is, and everyone knows ahead of time what their position on this particular topic is. So participants in the debate carefully plan what they're going to say when it's their allotted turn in the debate process. Debates can take place in a classroom setting, so it's an academic endeavor that students take part in, or they can also take place in a competitive environment where teams are competing to be named the debating team of the year or something like that. In our language classrooms, however, there's a really strong role for debating. Debating helps students practice giving opinions, agreeing, and disagreeing. And these are all key communication skills in English-speaking cultures, particularly because these cultures are very individualistic. Individuals in English-speaking cultures are always called upon to give opinions and to defend positions. So debating is a way for our students to learn these crucial skills. In addition to learning how to express opinion, agree, and disagree, our students can also learn some additional skills when they're practicing debating. These include how to build a logical and structured argument, how to rebut an argument, how to use facial expression, body language, and gestures to be persuasive, and how to use speaking speed, volume, word stress, and intonation to also be persuasive. There are a lot of reasons to use debates with our language students. We can start debating with students who are as low as an intermediate level. And then as students become more advanced with their language proficiency, we obviously increase the length of the debate and the complexity. But it's never too early to start our students on these fundamental debating skills. Formal debates can vary in terms of how many people are on each debating team, how long each person can speak, and how many debating roles there are. In your handout in Activity 3, we've given you one possible debating structure, and I'll go over that one now. So we have two teams, Team A and B. and each team has 4 people. Debater number 1 from each of the 2 teams has 1 minute to introduce their team's position. So Team A goes first and then Team B. Debater number 2 from each team then comes in and argues for that position by providing supporting details and examples. And these 2 debaters have 2 minutes. Then debater number 3 from both teams rebuts the other team's arguments. This is actually the hardest position, the rebuttal position. And the rebuttals are 2 minutes each for each team. Finally, debater number 4 from each team offers the concluding remarks. If you run your debate as a real formal debate is actually run, there are a few more roles that you need to fill. The first is a timekeeper. So this person makes sure that each speaker only speaks for his or her allotted time. The second position is a moderator. So the moderator makes sure that none of the debaters overlap or interrupt each other and that they really stick to what they're supposed to stick to. So the moderator can actually interrupt at any time. And then you need 1 or more judges, and these judges evaluate the arguments that each team is making and decides who the winner is. There's a lot of planning that goes into a debate, so team members have to get together and decide what they're actually going to say and when they're going to say it. There's 2 main stages in a debate when team members are planning. There's the argument stage and the rebuttal stage. The argument stage starts with an introduction of the team's position. Here's what we're stating, here's our opinion, here's what we're going to argue. Then the argument stage continues with all of the supporting points that the team has come up with to defend their position. So these points can be concepts, definitions, examples, and illustrations. There is certain language that students use to signal that they're in the argument stage of their debate. This language includes sequence markers, so first, second, third, then finally. It includes opinion markers or opinion words, so it is our position that, we believe that, we favor such and such argument, and so on. And finally, there are cause and effect markers or connectors. This is such and such, therefore, because, thus. So these are different phrases that we want our students to learn and use in the argument stage of their debate. In the rebuttal stage of the debate, students argue that the opposing team's argument is factually, logically, or morally flawed. In this stage of the debate, there are certain phrases as well that students use. The first set of phrases are sequence markers once again. First, second, third, then, finally, next, and so on. The second set of phrases are perspective markers. So from a factual perspective, or factually speaking, or logically speaking. And finally, there are phrases for disagreement. I disagree with that because, I don't believe that because. There's even more language that we can teach our students so that they're even better equipped to be successful in a debate. So let's take a look in more detail at this language that we want to give our students. We can teach our students expressions for expressing opinion. I think that, I believe that, it seems to me that, it's my feeling that, in my opinion, if you ask me, from my point of view, I feel that, I'm convinced, sure, positive that, I think, believe, feel that, I tend to think that, and I'm inclined to feel. We also need to give our students phrases for agreeing, because a really tricky strategy when debating is to appear to agree with your opponent, but then to twist it to demonstrate that you actually disagree. So phrases for agreeing include, I agree, yes, of course, absolutely, you're right, you're absolutely right, I agree with you, I think so too, that's a good point, that's right, you're right. I feel the same way. That's exactly how I feel. That's just what I was thinking. And there's even more phrases that we can give our students for disagreeing, because ultimately this is what they want to do with their opponents. They want to disagree. I disagree with that statement. I disagree. Have you thought about such and such instead? Or, And if you consider, I agree with you, but I also think that. I see what you mean, but. You have a point, but. That may be true, but. Maybe, but don't you think that? I'm afraid I disagree with you. I'm sorry, but I can't agree with you. And we've got our sequence markers, first, second, third, fourth. We've also got next, then, and finally. We have phrases for paraphrasing. This is a good rebuttal strategy as well. If I hear what you are saying, if I understand you correctly, so what you are saying is that, so basically, what you mean is, let me repeat what you said. And finally, we need to give our students phrases for summarizing. To summarize, let me restate the main ideas. Here are the key points. The most obvious activity to do with your students so that they can practice debating is to run a formal debate. However, formal debates don't work with all classes. They definitely work with classes at an intermediate level and higher. But just because your class doesn't fit this profile doesn't mean you should not use debating in your class. There are a lot of variations on debates that we can do with our students that make debating more manageable for students with lower language proficiencies. We can use the same activities to help our higher level students build up their debating skills. The first activity is called argument brainstorming. Put your students into groups of 4 and then write a fairly controversial statement on the board. Make sure everyone can see it. Assign positions to each group of 4. So some of the groups of 4 will be for the position statement that you wrote on the board, and some of them will be against. Give each group of 4 a piece of chart paper, and give them 5 to 10 minutes to brainstorm as many points as possible to support the particular position you've given them with respect to that statement. Once students have finished brainstorming the argument for their particular position, have them go back to each point and figure out how they're going to support that point with examples, numbers, statistics, and other supporting details. Give them a few minutes to try that. Finally, have students switch papers with a team that has the opposite position. They have to read what's on their new paper, and then as a team they switch their position so they now agree with the points on the paper they now have. They then look at what's there and see if they can add anything else. To wrap all of this up, have teams present the points they've got for their particular positions. Once this process is complete, you've got a really solid set of positions and points to support both sides of the argument. The next activity is called rebuttal practice, or rebuttal circle. To start the activity, quickly review phrases that we use to disagree with someone or to rebut an argument. Then get the students standing in a circle. Give the entire class a statement or a position, and select a student to offer a point in support of that position. That student then picks another student, anyone in the circle, who then has to rebut what the first student said. That student picks another student who rebuts what the second student said. And so students keep picking other students to rebut what they've said until everyone's had a chance. Then offer another statement or position and do the same thing over and over again. This way students get lots and lots of practice rebutting arguments. The final activity is called a mini pair debate. Have students get a partner and designate one partner as A and one as B. Then put a statement on the board. Tell all of the A students that they are going to debate with their partner and their job is to support the statement that you've put up there. Tell the B students that their job is to disagree with that statement. Give students about 5 minutes to argue with their partners about this particular statement. Then stop the debate and put another statement up there. There are a few ways to mix this activity up. After each mini debate, students can get another partner, so they're always working with someone different. And a fun way to mix this up is to make your statement a little bit goofy. So you could say something like, chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla ice cream. And the final way to mix this up is to have students actually sit or stand a fair distance apart. Then when they're debating, they have to speak very loudly and they have to articulate their words very carefully. So this helps students work on their volume as they're debating. Debates are such a great activity to do in your speaking classes. You do have to be careful because students can get very competitive, so things can get a little bit hot. So sometimes you have to just calm people down. But students really have a lot of fun establishing a position and arguing for that position. Formal debates really give students a structure in which they can become comfortable arguing. And then the smaller debating activities help them build up their skills for debating in smaller, more manageable chunks. So have some fun trying these with your students.